All right, gearheads, welcome to the show. We just watched the Formula 1 Canadian Grand Prix. Yeah, I like that. That'll work. Max Verstappen wins the race. It's John Massengale sitting in the studio in Austin, Texas with Jonathan Green and Les Kaiser. How are you doing, boys?
Doing great.
Good. Not a classic, but I'll take it.
Yep, and we got Bob Varsha over Zoom. Hopefully we're going to connect with Bob. Bob, can you hear us over there?
Yeah, I can.
All right, we got you. What'd you think?
Well, I agree with Jonathan. Not a classic. Frankly, I expected a bit more passing after that was the advantage of going to Montreal that most of the teams cited. But, having said that, there was a lot of nose-to-tail racing even before the late safety car. And it was pretty thrilling watching Carlos Sainz try every trick in the book to get by Verstappen toward the end of that race. But it was it was good stuff from start to finish, I think.
Jonathan, I think you had the hottest take at the end of that race when you said it's an ominous thing to watch Verstappen right now.
Yeah, I mean, the sheer pace of the Red Bull, I think, is what my takeaway is, because how many laps did he have DRS, Sainz?
Like almost 10?
Yeah,
right.
And he just could not do anything. Neither of them made a mistake. Verstappen also proving just how cool under pressure he really is. Very, very impressive.
Yeah.
We saw both Ferraris, and Martin Brundle pointed this out in the broadcast. Both Ferraris seem to be slow off the corners, particularly that hairpin. Sainz couldn't deal with Esteban Ocon for the longest time. Sainz couldn't deal with Verstappen. If they just, had a little more grunt off the corners, might have been a different story, I think.
And I think it was grip, and it wasn't necessarily a grunt or lack of power, but it was
higher grip.
Just the grip.
Well, that last chance was, to me, when they showed that overhead view of Sainz coming in, looked like he had a bit of understeer. I mean, it looked like he was trying to steer, but it just wasn't grabbing and going. But to me, there just was enough pull on that Red Bull that he managed to overcome the DRS challenge or the opportunity that you expected to catch him sometimes. And I really think that's where it played off, because it was the first two sectors, they were really nice and tight. Things were going well. But then the third, it always felt like that's when Max showed and got his breathing room back.
Well, we should have Chris Medland in Montreal with a microphone running around to get us some interviews here in just a bit. So we'll wait for Chris. But
good job nobody got the predictions.
Not again.
Hey, what?
It.
Huh?
Wait, no, Bob's the man at remembering facts here.
Okay, go.
Bob, do you recall the facts of who predicted?
He's going to bring Bob in.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. This is the second time since 2011 that Les has gotten the top
three. Beautifully done, Mr.
You asked
Mr.
for
Varsha.
that one. You asked for that one.
And I liked Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Bob. Have a great week.
Kaiser.
So that is the
Glad I'm
second
this
time
far
in 2
away
weeks.
from you guys.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay, Les. I'll give you that credit. You got 2 weeks in a row you've called the prediction right, but
And
Les
that's
Kaiser.
stereotypical.
Les Kaiser.
Isn't that something about a broken clock? Is right twice a day or something?
Yeah,
Anyway.
guaranteed to be right, 100% accurate twice a day.
There you go.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, not a great day for the Haas team, boys.
Oh,
the
what a
dream
disappointment.
start has turned into a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, from heroes to has-beens.
Bob had the best expression on his face, shaking his head.
Well, it's that old, flattering only to deceive comment.
Yeah.
You want so badly for those guys to get something done. And, when Schumacher dropped out, I think Crofty said it perfectly. Your heart just goes out to the guy.
What does he do to have to get a point? He's yet to score a point, and he was definitely in with a chance.
Exactly.
A quick question for all of you: can we read anything into Perez's gearbox issue? I mean, we're always looking for a chink in the armor, or anybody else is looking for a chink in the armor. Nothing happened to obviously Verstappen this weekend, but would we look closer at that?
I saw a note here. Red Bull has had more mechanical failures this year than Ferrari has.
Mm-hmm.
So, I suppose it's always a possibility with the Red Bull cars. But, in one of those quirky circumstances, it always seems to happen to Perez and never to Max Verstappen. So, read into that whatever you whatever you like.
Yeah, but going back to the beginning of the season, Verstappen had how many DNFs? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
A couple of them.
yeah, at least
Mhm.
2.
Perez has had 4.
Yeah. So, yeah. What else? Let's see.
Massive
lot.
weekend for Hamilton.
Yes.
2 weeks before the British Grand
That's
Prix.
true. That's big.
Seeing a smile on the face and a sort of skipping a step. Massive for both Formula One and for Hamilton personally.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let me just run down it real quick. Max Verstappen wins, followed by Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell 3 and 4 for the Mercedes. Leclerc made it all the way up to 5th from starting at the back. Then Esteban Ocon, Alonso, who apparently was having some straight line speed issues, but was still 100 times faster than everyone else, apparently. He said on team radio.
Yeah, he did that math while driving.
Yeah. Bottas 8th, Zhou Guanyu 9th, Lance Stroll, Ricardo Vettel, Albon, Gasly, Lando Norris down in 15th after a horrific pit stop. Latifi down in 16th, not a good Canadian weekend. Kevin Magnussen after hitting, running into I guess that was probably Magnussen's fault, but hit Hamilton early first lap. And then Yuki Tsunoda, and then, of course, did not finish Mick Schumacher and Sergio Perez with those valuable points, constructor points for Perez. But, you know, when K-Mag hit Hamilton, it didn't look like he hit hard enough to break that wing. And I guess it took a few laps for them to wave the black and orange flag, but it didn't look that bad.
Probably fractured it, and then just all the vibration, clip and apex, etc.
Probably fractured because it is more brittle than bendable.
I
right?
think the reason it wasn't affecting him personally, but the reason for bringing him in or giving him that flag was that if it fell off, it could damage somebody else's car.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and that makes total sense, and you should do that. But it just looked like such a slight little bump that I didn't think it was going to. I didn't think it was going to cause a problem. But once they showed how much it bent in, but.
I thought Hamilton was coming away with a puncture, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, gentlemen, we need to squeeze in a quick message here. And when we come back, we'll get Chris Medland live from Montreal. We're back after these messages. All right, welcome back to the show. And as promised, we have Chris Medland in the paddock in Montreal. Chris, anything going on at the moment?
I can hear him.
I can hear his mic is working. He's probably. Well, anyway, we'll come back to Chris. But Jonathan, we were talking about during the break, had that been Leclerc instead of Sainz?
I threw it out there just because I just got frustrated with with the fact that Sainz didn't make a move or wasn't able to make a move, and I just wonder if Leclerc would have pulled something special out of the can with those 10 laps. I mean, that's an unfair, perhaps, assumption, but that rivalry, I think, between Leclerc and Verstappen, I think Verstappen would have been more nervous if it had been Leclerc behind it, put it that way.
That's a good point. Whether or not the Leclerc could have done faster laps is one of the obvious things to talk about. But if you're Verstappen, knowing it's Leclerc back there, would you, maybe you made a mistake?
Yeah, I think the key is neither of them made a mistake, really.
Yeah.
And that's why, there was no chance really for Sainz.
There was that one, there was the one little mistake, the tiny mistake. I think it was a little understeer less that was Carlos Sainz, right? With like the last lap.
Yeah, the last chance when we see the overhead shot, looking down on it, you see he clearly missed the apex, but he was set right. And so I think he was, the entry part of his setup was correct, but then just front end just gave way on him. So definitely a little understeer right there cost him. That probably is what was the nail in the coffin to finish off his last good running charge on Max.
That he'd try at least once to send it in on the brakes and see if he could, unsettle Verstappen, take him by surprise, but it just never happened.
Right. And, quite honestly, I mean, Sainz had a fantastic race. You look at the strategy he played several different times over the last 10 laps, though, you know, none of them really peaked better than any others on that, but he kept after it. He kept slightly different approach, the breaking points, setting up, trying to distract Max a little bit, offline a little bit, and it just Max would not be rattled. It's just the net result.
All right, it sounds like we maybe have Chris Medland back. Chris, can you hear us now, buddy?
Nope.
I think he can't hear us. We can hear him, but he can't hear us. We'll work on that technical difficulty and try again here in a minute. Jonathan, what else?
Yeah, you mentioned Haas. I think the weekend, if you look at overall, Alpine, big step forward, clearly Ocon and Alonso. Regardless of conditions, they are moving forward as Alpine plan. They've obviously got another good driver on the way too, in Piastri, who could well be going to Williams. I mean, Alpine as a team are looking finally more like, fighting for the top of the midfield, boys, which has been a while. And Alonso definitely looking as sprightly as ever at 41.
Man, that to me was just a really cool story to see Alonso up front in that front pack again. Gosh, let's see that some more.
What do you think, Bob?
What's that?
I was going to say, what do you think about my thing with Hamilton for next week, with a couple of weeks away from British Grand Prix? It's going to turn around his, hopefully his hopes for a better season, because there's still time for Mercedes. There were 3 and 4 that have been up there the last 2 races now.
Yeah, I think he has every reason to go to his home race, with a lot of optimism. And I'm sure he'd be the first to tell you that. It's going to be interesting to see, now that this weekend's over, what the FIA is going to have to say about the whole porpoising issue. If it becomes a non-issue, then we'll learn even more at Silverstone. The next 3 races are going to be interesting, because you got Britain, Austria, and France all back to back.
Yeah.
And I think those will be telling races. A lot of power circuits in there. And, if they can get their ride height problem sorted out, Mercedes certainly has the power, and it could mix things up even more. Alfa Romeo had a great race. They got both cars in the points, which doesn't happen very often. And how about George Russell? I mean, he still has not fallen out of the top 5 at a race finish, and he really had to scramble to get this one.
Yeah, and think about the reliability that Mercedes has had, because that's clearly what, proves that Russell's been in top 5 every time. Last week,
speaking of George Russell, you've timed it brilliantly, because I'm with him right now. George, you're continuing the run.
Yeah, I mean, it's we'll take it. Obviously, P4, P5 is nice, but I want to be standing on the top of that podium. So I think as a team, it was a much improved weekend. We were definitely closer on race pace to Red Bull and Ferrari, but our inherent performance is still not good enough.
Well, will it be better in Silverstone as well? Is that going to suit your car a bit more? Because that's a bit more like Barcelona, where you were right in the fight.
I think on paper it does. But every single race we go into at the moment, we're sort of experiencing a new issue with the car. So I'd like to think so, but as it stands, there's sort of no guarantees. So regardless, we'll be giving it our all and see what we can achieve.
Great stuff, George. Thank you very much. Well done today. There we go. We did manage to grab it. Sorry that I was missing you guys earlier. It was my headphones decided not to work, so I couldn't hear a word you lot were saying. But I'm sure it was all gold.
Absolutely, 100%. Well,
lost the string from the tin can.
I was just Les talking about his podium predictions.
Les Kaiser.
Well,
You heard they were right,
racing.
though, right? You heard I got it 100%.
Something different is wrong with the car every week.
That I thought was telling.
Motorsports.
yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong, but 1 week we're actually going to have on the midweek show. I had a chat with James Allison about the difference between porpoising and bouncing, and kind of where each issue comes up. And essentially, when they sort of solve one, they hit the other. So Mercedes, this concept clearly isn't a smooth one, but yeah, exactly. But it does seem a little bit better than it was. If you look at that race pace today, especially that final stint when Lewis was just kind of in there, wasn't he? Just kind of, he didn't drop back enormously quickly when the front two were clearly giving it everything. That was the thing. Verstappen and Sainz were going at it. They weren't cruising. They had fresh enough tyres to do that. And it didn't disappear off into the distance.
Chris, I'm looking forward to that on Wheel to Wheel to hear that with James Allison, because I mean, if they cure it, I mean, it's pretty ominous because both competitive and Russell's clearly on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that he's continued that run, I know he actually sounded a bit despondent there because Lewis has finished ahead of him, so he's not happy with it, and his expectations are getting higher and higher. But that was much more kind of, well, that was just so in keeping with everything he's done this season, just so consistent, getting the most out of his opportunities. You know, he leaves nothing on the table, does he?
No.
And I think Mercedes must be so confident that if they do get the car in that window, that they've got 2 race winners behind the wheel. So, yeah, it's a big problem they have to solve, but it kind of feels like the only problem.
And just looking at the points, you know, there's a big gap between Red Bull and Ferrari. It's almost, it's like 75 points, but the gap down to Mercedes is now down to about 40. So yeah, it's you know, and Mercedes has hung in there all season long in the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, very close. I guess it all kind of closed up a slight bit, didn't it, today? The way it kind of panned out. Because without Checo scoring, I guess Ferrari took a few points off Red Bull. And then Mercedes probably held station, I guess, with 4th and 5th. Sorry, 3rd and 4th. Remember the result. So yeah, I imagine it's all kind of just only a slight change from after Baku, but yeah, Mercedes in that sense, as bad as they look at times, they've done a heck of a job of picking up some solid points all the way through.
You know, terrible weekend for Haas, but they only actually lost 1 point to their rivals in their battle for 8th position to Aston Martin, because they had a rotten weekend too. So Aston Martin currently on 16, Ferrari on, Haas on 15.
I don't think if you said that in the garage right now, it would have any effect. But no, I'm channeling my inner Massengale. You're eternal optimist. Yeah. What else, though? Chris, what else? We got our takes on this. What else from today, your takes?
Well, I mean, when you watch that fight at the front, when it was between Carlos and Max, and you do wonder, don't you, if it had been Charles, whether it would have been a different story based on just the difference that's been between the two of them in most races. It's only small differences, but it only needed a small difference once for it to switch around with Max under that much pressure. So that was, it was the one that promised so much and then just didn't quite happen. And it would have been nice to see an attempt there. But I think it was good to see Ferrari kind of, have a reliable run, a little bit more on it. They had a slow pit stop with Charles, but I don't think it cost him a position in the end. So based on all of that, I think it actually wasn't the worst day for Ferrari. They kind of recovered much better than it could have been, especially with Checo retiring. So I kind of feel like we're in a similar position to when we arrived here, really, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I made the same point earlier in the show before I came on, Chris. You just kept waiting for Sainz to try it, to go in on the brakes, So I can't get you on DRS. I'm going to try to outbrake you, catch you by surprise. But he just never looked remotely willing to try that.
No, and if you think he's had a lot of races where he hasn't scored, hasn't he? And he's had a bit of a tough year. And, to actually just get a solid podium in there was probably on his mind as well, just to make sure he kind of bucked the trend. And it must be difficult because he's chasing that first win. You feel so close for him, but just can't quite get it over the line. And he's got to weigh those two things up because, if he sends it, I mean, you think Max would have jumped out the way in a sense, but only if it was reasonable. And I don't think there was actually a point where it was reasonable to lunge. I think he was always a bit too far away to try that.
Yeah, well, 11th podium for Sainz, and that's within 2 of Nick Heidfeld's Formula One record for podiums without a victory.
Interesting.
And here's a melancholy note, at least to me. This is Max Verstappen's 26th victory, which moves him out of a tie with Niki Lauda and Jimmy Clark.
Wow.
That's pretty poignant to me, I think.
I think the other stat that stands out to me that I read listened to during FP1 was that of the 150 starts Max has had, 25 have been first places and 25 have been second. So 2/3 of his starts have been either first or second. That's amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. 150 starts for Max Verstappen is amazing.
Yes.
Where did he start all those races? The guy's still a kid.
He was 15.
And just think how many he's going to end up with.
Yeah, and you think of what the car was like when he first got in it. I know he won his first race for Red Bull, but obviously he had the spell at Toro Rosso there, and then he didn't have a dominant car with Red Bull for a number of years, did he? He was quite often, there's a few years there where he can pick up a win or two. So it shows it's the more recent form and how often he capitalizes on his opportunities. I think they're the two things that are really clear here. And today he never looked like putting a foot wrong, did he? Did anyone really doubt that he, you never felt like he'd make a mistake. You felt like it was more likely that maybe Carlos could try something, but you didn't expect him to be able to pressure him into a problem.
Can we confirm it was a gearbox for Perez?
I haven't got that yet, but I will ask Christian Horner if I see him. I normally try and grab him at some stage. So if I see anyone from Red Bull, I will ask that question. I'm actually just loitering behind Otmar Szafnauer, who's speaking to local TV. I'm going to see if he will give us the lowdown on what kind of happened with Fernando Alonso's race.
I like you said
it
loitering.
came to Ocon, didn't it?
Sorry.
Loitering's what I do.
Another positive for the sport. Great coverage on ABC here in the US as well as ESPN, but also over 330,000 evidently. You can, Chris, confirm the atmosphere, but a big event.
Big crowd.
Again.
Yeah, it was a really excited crowd. And a lot of them were very excited to see Fernando Alonso on the front row at the start of that race. Didn't quite come together the way we thought at the start. Otmar, what kind of happened with Fernando's race today?
Well, it did come together at the start. It just didn't come together at the end. Fernando had a bit of an issue. I think we had a air leak on his engine. So he had to, at the end, stay behind Esteban, who was helping him with the DRS to make sure we weren't overtaken. And the safety car didn't help us. We were well ahead of Leclerc and probably we would have stayed ahead of him. But with the safety car, it bunched everybody up. And then having Leclerc right behind you in a Ferrari is quite difficult. Their car's just faster.
Well, when you look at it, I know we were hyping up the starting positions, but both cars in the top 7, solid points. Is it a satisfactory return?
Yeah, more than satisfactory. 14 points, and some of our rivals didn't score nearly as many. So, yeah, really good.
And where do you see this car as we move forward to someone like Silverstone? You've had great straight line speed, hard to overtake at the last 2 races. But is it a good enough all-rounder to be fighting for similar there?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll. My prediction is that I hate to predict the future, but I think we'll go well at Silverstone.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing how you do. Otmar, thank you very much. Esteban Ocon just coming in and getting a hug for his work today. Another top 6 for Esteban, and he's
getting a what? Is that what word did you? Oh, is he?
A hug. Okay. Definitely hug.
Okay, good.
Nobody tried Gunther Steinering me live on the radio. So he's been pretty stealthy, sort of picking up those results. Yeah, every few weeks, hasn't he? He's had some pretty solid performances. So another good one from Ocon. I've just missed actually Lando Norris going the other way. He's already changed. I mean, what a miserable day for McLaren.
Oh man, he doesn't want to talk to anybody.
Anyone wants to talk to me?
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Hey, Chris, we need to do a quick stop here, but when we come back, we'll have more from Chris in the paddock in Montreal. You listen to Speed City. Back after this.
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. Our digital world is more than just interconnected, it's interdependent. And because of that, security is a top concern for every organization. The Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team knows they're a potential target for a host of digital attacks, which is why they leverage the CrowdStrike Falcon platform to deploy end-to-end security solutions. CrowdStrike revolutionized cybersecurity by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop the most sophisticated cyber attacks. Our cloud-native Falcon platform protects and defends organizations against increasingly complex threats, so you can have the peace of mind to focus on your business momentum, not what's trying to stop it. That's protection that powers you. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, welcome back. We got Chris in the paddock in Montreal, and he's hunting people down. And Chris, just do the usual and jump in if you got somebody. But Bob Varsha, any other takes as we move down the order here? I mean, what about Lance Stroll? We hadn't talked much about him. He finished in 10th in the points.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we trashed him during my rundown of the starting grid because he's never qualified well in his home race. But he has come through and scored points on a number of occasions. He drove a steady race, He was a part of some long trains of cars, 4 or 5 cars in a line, but he managed to hold on, get his tires changed, and come through in the points in front of the home crowd again. So well done to him.
Yeah, another shout out that's sort of not a headline, but one that's well worth noting. Valtteri Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou in the top 10, scoring points. And for Zhou especially, out qualifying Bottas, another good weekend. First Chinese driver, he's quietly going about his business, but they're performing around for a moment.
Yeah,
really
during
well.
the race, you were talking about how much you like him now.
Yeah, I just like him. He's very emotional, which is rare for having lived in Asia. The Chinese aren't well known for that kind of emotion, but he gets the team behind him. He's a good kid. He gets down when he's not winning. Like at Baku, you hear him on the radio really mad, and then today, he was really, really heartfelt that they got the result, and the qualifying yesterday was brilliant.
Yeah, you can hear someone like Dale Earnhardt Sr. looking at his performance and saying, that kid's a racer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He got 2 point scoring finishes in his first 9 races. So, he's getting with the program.
And Bottas has no mean feat as a teammate.
Oh boy, you got that right.
Okay, so we talked about Lando Norris having a bad day, but Daniel Ricciardo, he finished 11th. That's the second race in a row now. He's finished ahead of his teammate. It was good timing because there was lots of rumors right before all that. Not that he drove necessarily a great race today. What'd you think, Jonathan?
Who were you talking about?
Daniel Ricciardo, finishing ahead of Lando.
Yeah, I thought Chris's interview with Ricciardo yesterday sort of summed up, or last weekend was summed up, that there is a turning point for Ricciardo. It wasn't a good day for McLaren, full stop. But we need Ricciardo to be at the top of his game. It's been a weird couple of years for him. And, he is definitely heart on your sleeve kind of guy. I mentioned Joe. Well, Ricciardo's always been that. And, we need him to be at the top of his game. And if they can get there, and they've certainly showed signs of it, the McLaren isn't a bad package. It's just seemingly up and down.
Something I spoke to Zach Brown a bit ago. I said a bit ago this morning briefly, and he was saying that they want Daniel to do well, and there was a bit of pressure put on him, obviously, but that they were happy with the way he responded to that. They liked what they were seeing for the way he handles that kind of situation. So whether or not they can turn around the actual car form is another matter. But as we said, we can't really judge him against Lando today with the way that Lando's race panned out. But it was, I think, more that the car was poor rather than Daniel being poor today.
Yeah, good point. That's true. Let's see what else. Just looking down.
I want to pick up on Chris. Bob just mentioned it just before you came on air. Looking ahead to the next 3 races, Britain, France. Definitely some speed tracks. Is it ominous for those chasing Red Bull, or can there be opportunities for other teams, including Mercedes, at those 3?
Yeah, I think Mercedes is the one. I kind of mentioned it to George there, but that's the one I think Silverstone especially is going to be a real acid test of whether they've made gains with that car, and it's just the last couple of circuits haven't suited. Because Barcelona, we were talking it up. It looked a lot more positive, didn't it? Much more positive than we'd had, and whether that then translates to Silverstone, which is similar kind of characteristics, a lot of high-speed stuff, some decent length straights, but very quick circuit where you do need good downforce too, then potentially we're going to see more races where they're kind of in that little fight at the front, or close to it at least. I don't know if I'm quite sharing Otmar Szafnauer's confidence. Not that I think Alpine will be poor by any stretch, but I just feel like the top 3 might pull away. That's the sort of circuit where you really do see the all-round performance of the car, and I think those top 3 might just edge away from the midfield at the next couple. Certainly at Silverstone. Austria, different kettle of fish. Actually, we sometimes see some strong performances from different cars there, and that one I think will suit Alpine. If I had to be a betting man, I'd go for that one suiting Alpine because of long straights. Just get the car turned, get on the power. That's one where, a bit like here, a bit like Baku, that I think they could be strong.
And they're only 4 points behind McLaren, and behind McLaren at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a good run for Alpine, and obviously a bad day for McLaren today. And I am literally outside McLaren right now, trying to see if Andreas Siedel's around for a quick chat, but doesn't seem to be. But yeah, it's almost not a surprise, is it? Team bosses hide away when they've had a bad day, and come on out to talk when they've had a good one. But yeah, it's just McLaren is still up and down. I think I'm always sort of, sorry to say it, scarred by that first race, that very first race that they were just so off the pace in Bahrain.
Mm-hmm.
That's a warning sign, isn't it? That they are, they've got the potential to have the weekend like they've had this weekend, where they're just not quite there. So, still some learning to do, some improving to do to make, I'd say, give confidence to any of these teams that are going to be quick everywhere. But as you guys said, someone like Alfa Romeo seemed to basically always just be there or thereabouts. Unlike, like a Haas who can qualify well and then slip back or have the odd off weekend, pretty much always get at least one Alfa Romeo right in that mix, which has been an impressive turnaround from them.
Mm. You were talking. Go ahead.
Speaking of, just fast, Carlos Sainz had the fastest lap, but I kept seeing him just, nibble away at Max. And so I was kind of surprised that he kept the fastest lap, even though he was right there nipping on Max's heels for the past 10 laps. I really figured that would have gone to Max.
Mm. Yeah, and he seemed like he nibbled away, but he never really did enough to get there, obviously, to even get close to go for a pass. But
I think that's called controlling the race from the front.
Yeah.
I don't think Max showed us everything he had, and he had enough maturity not to to risk it by going for that extra point. In contrast to a guy like Sebastian Vettel back in his days with Red Bull, time and again in a race where he was dominating, took the lead, led every lap, and at the end you'd hear Christian Horner coming on the radio saying, "We think there's a problem with your tires. You got to slow down. You got to slow down." He was actually trying to prevent Vettel from risking his race in the car by going for the clean sweep with that fast lap. And it's it's something we're not seeing with Max Verstappen. I think he's a more mature driver at this stage.
Mm.
Hey, so speaking of fast laps, the fastest lap was Carlos Sainz with an average speed of 207.258, right behind him Max with a 207.012, so a tenth of a second and some change. Third, who we've been talking about, Charles Leclerc, was right there ahead of Hamilton. So the Ferraris were definitely the first pair all the way up. I keep looking for Checo's failure there, and nothing so far.
I was just checking to see who driver of the day was. Any guesses here, gentlemen?
Got to be Verstappen, isn't it?
Nope.
Okay. Lonzo, I bet.
Nope.
Okay.
Did the Latifi hype train come through?
No,
It's got to be a really long train.
It lost its caboose.
A really long
lap
train.
2.
Be careful with your
I'm thinking Hamilton.
There was a social media campaign to make Latifi the driver of the day here that was running for a few days, I saw. And I will admit, I was really hoping it wouldn't happen. So
It was Leclerc, by the way.
On a serious note, Chris, a lot of rumors, and you can either verify or say it's rubbish, that Piastri could replace Latifi as soon as the British Grand Prix. Is that a step too far?
I think that's a step too far. From what I've heard today, I think there was interest in it, talks in it. It seems to be partly about what Piastri wants to do. Don't forget that he has got to think of his own career too. He's got his own management. There's different aspects to think about. And would it actually be good for Piastri to go into what's a difficult car at Williams, rather than continue the testing program he's on at Alpine and get into the Alpine? Because obviously Williams, if they're going to get rid of Latifi early, which would be a bit of a slap in the face to not only Nicholas but his father and the money that went into look after that team, keep it going not that long ago.
That's a good point.
So I think to make that step, you'd be wanting something a bit more concrete, a bit more long term, and just to give Piastri half a season of experience and then lose him to Alpine wouldn't make sense. So Williams will be saying, right, he's staying here with us for a few years. I might try a very risky, as we walk and talk, Zach Brown, who will hopefully briefly give us a summary of the race from your point of view. He's got to run, so he's not going to give us a summary of his race.
I think that pretty much was a summary of his race, actually. Well done, Chris.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it was the look on his face at first was like, yeah, come over and have a chat. And then as soon as I got there, he was like, no, don't even try it. So, not a happy man. Well, I mean, unsurprisingly, though, when you've had a day like they've had. So, no wonder Andrea's sitting away as well. Guan Yu Zhou's nearby. Actually, let's see if we can speak to him because he's had a good day, but he's just doing a bit of television. But yeah, I'm with you, Johnny. I'm a fan of what Zhou has done.
Yeah.
Well,
It's been
especially as he was
very
written off
impressive.
before he started, just because he brought money. And,
Yeah.
you know, and if you, I mean, I happen to know him because I spent some time in Toyota with him. So, and he's a really nice guy, you know, and we all fall foul when a new name arrives. If you don't know anything about him, you kind of, it's hard to make an understanding of, you know, what kind of a person he is.
Mm-hmm. All right, gentlemen. At this moment, we are going to take a pause, and when we come back, we're going to try to get Chris more loitering time in the paddock in Montreal and see who else he can get. Listen to Speed City back after these messages.
Hi, this is Jay Leno from JayLenosGarage.com, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
The Speed City F1 post-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at CrowdStrike.com/XM. All right, Chris Medland in the paddock at Montreal is still hunting an interview for us. Anything on your radar, Chris?
I managed to let Guanyu Zhou slip through my fingers. Annoyingly, he was doing a very long interview with UK TV, so a lot of people are paying attention to him right now. But no, sadly, he got away from me right there. So I'll see if we can grab anyone else's. It's a bit of a strange one. The paddock kind of thins out very quickly. And I imagine that that's partly because a lot of people are trying to get out this evening to get back to Europe overnight. So there's a lot of guests around, not so many team members right now. But there'll still be a few. We've still got, half an hour on air. I'll always grab someone.
All right.
I never give up.
Jonathan, you had something in the show doc about the Schumacher contract?
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, obviously today was a bit of an anomaly because he obviously didn't finish. But you know, where is Schumacher going in your mind? He's a Ferrari asset. Gunter has been, you know, kind of quite talky about the fact that, you know, he's damaged a few cars, but I think he's bounced back in the last couple of weeks. But where are we looking for Mick to be?
Are you asking Chris that?
Yeah, sorry, that was Chris, if he can hear me.
Sorry, miles away. I had my headphones off while I was trying to see who I might be able to grab an interview with. Come back to me with that. What was that?
Just about the Mick Schumacher sort of question mark as to contracts and what he might be and what Ferrari want for him, because obviously there's no seat for him at Ferrari at the moment. But do you see him being somebody who will be looking for a more competitive ride next year, or will Haas keep him?
I think you'd be looking for a more competitive ride in the sense that every driver wants to be in the most competitive car they can be. But I don't think he's done enough yet to convince either Ferrari or Haas to move him around. It's whether Ferrari are going to stick with him and go, well, he could come good. I think, he's got the rest of the season to prove that point, essentially, and say to Ferrari, look, I'm good enough. You should leave me more development time in at least a Haas, if not, another team. I think part of the problem comes down to other options. For Ferrari-powered teams, there aren't many, are there? It's just Alfa Romeo who are pretty well set with what they've got. And if they don't stick with what they've got, then I think it's Théo Pourchaire that would go in there if he's ready coming up from F2, because that's a sort of protege of Fred Vasseur. So I think most likely stay put. There's been a few whispers about an Aston Martin move, but I genuinely think that's just maybe trying to test the waters and see if anyone's interested. And he just doesn't have the results to go with it right now, which is what you really do need if you're going to try and convince another team to take you on.
How about this idea? Ferrari's going to have a prototype sports car program as they plot their return to Le Mans. They're going to need drivers for that.
As Daddy did.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's a good fit. That's he'd love to drive a Ferrari still, wouldn't he?
Yeah,
sure.
And he would be a good asset for that. That's how Michael got his, as we'll remember.
Sure. I think the three guys that I think are in some level of trouble for next year are Latifi, Ricciardo, and Schumacher. So, speculate all you want about where they could go. And, sports cars are not a bad place to land if the shine has come off your apple in Formula One, as it were.
Yeah, especially if it's a shiny red factory-backed sports car. So, no doubt. Hey, Jonathan, I remember how you and I were talking. I was complaining about DRS in the middle of this race because I was sitting there watching these iconic moments, right? When Hamilton passes Alonso, and it was virtually a non-event. It's just DRS. And then the same thing happened again when Verstappen passed Hamilton. It was You know, they were, you know,
inconsequential moments
Exactly.
in a race where when you put two champions up together like that, you're expecting a joust.
yeah,
But then you had the last 10.
yeah.
I
But-
I tell you what, the bigger question for me is: are the new rules that we've got with the bigger tires? Are we going to get to a point where we can do away with DRS finally?
What do you think, Bob Varsha?
Well, that's a good question. It's certainly livened things up a little bit in this new era of Formula One in terms of aerodynamics and tires and what have you. I don't see it going away anytime soon. We'll see what happens with the new engine regulations in 2026 and, you know, who answers the bell. No, I don't see it going away anytime. I don't know if that's even been speculated, has it? I mean,
No, it's
No.
personal,
weight
really.
is coming off.
I mean, it just caught me today. I don't know, because it was those drivers, right? Those champions, and you get fired up to watch the battle, and there's no battle.
Right.
It was just zero battle at all, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
no,
just because there's no position change doesn't mean there's not a battle. I mean, it's you know, you have to earn your overtakes. DRS takes a little out of that, but I mean, you know, look when they went green after the safety car, and there were 2 laps before the DRS came into effect, you know, and everybody was nose to tail. The cars are just so close right now. Without DRS, you'd see even less passing. So if passing is what you want, this is what it's going to take.
Okay, so a different take. I heard somebody. There was another graphic showing the comparison of size of the F1 cars from now to like 15 years ago, and it was
Oh, boy.
quite notable. And
Mhm.
the argument was, well, yeah, now you're driving an electric, Buick Electra 225 instead of a sports car on the tracks that were so notable back then. You can't have 2 of those cars pass, but you could have 2 little minis pass each other. So, maybe that's a take that we need to, that's a consideration of going back to a smaller F1 automobile footprint or platform. There's no reason all the technology couldn't be in there. I mean, look at the size of a Prius or so many others.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. And that's Formula E, which I'm acquainted with, is doing with their new Generation 3 cars coming up next year. The cars are going to be way more powerful and a good bit smaller dimensionally than what they've been in the past. And I don't see any reason why Formula One can't do the same. Once they get these new regulations under control, start shaving back the size of the cars to accomplish what Les has just described.
Yep. I want to see a profile like of the early 70s, late 70s, kind of the 70s era. Big fat tires. Throw some wings on there. Let's make some
Those
noise.
Giant,
Let's
out of
make some
proportion
noise.
rear tires.
Yeah.
Hey, I saw something on Twitter, guys, that actually one of you retweeted. Somebody suggesting that having a Red Bull, a Ferrari, and a Mercedes on the podium is, quote unquote, needed by F1. That makes F1, quote unquote, the winners, yada, yada, yada. Basically, they're implying that this was a stipulated finish to get the 3 big teams on the podium, which is, just bizarre to me, but there it is.
Yeah.
I think Checo and Leclerc will argue against that point.
I thought Leclerc did a good job, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and most of everybody else, since he's driver of the day. That's who it was, by the way.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard that, but that's who it was.
Sorry, yeah. Okay, good.
Nicely played.
Nice segue, yeah. It was a good drive. Very good drive. I mean, when you pair it to let's say, Vettel, who was coming from the same point, as it were, Leclerc made the most of it, for sure.
Hey, Bob, what about buddies Sebastian Vettel and Mick Schumacher? Big brother Vettel was kind of sticking up for Mick, telling Steiner to stop messing with him. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. In fact, we heard the story over the weekend that Gunther Steiner was willing to throw young Schumacher under the bus in Schumacher's presence with the press, which sounds really unfortunate. But yeah, Vettel said in a press conference earlier in the weekend, he said, look, it's not helping him let him up, let him up a bit, don't go to the press or don't say publicly how bad it is for him. And when he does well, promote that, but just, give the guy some breathing space, quit piling on the pressure from within his own team. I mean, that's, in many ways, I think that needs to be the driver's sanctuary. He can always go to his team. The media can say what they want, other teams can say what they want, but you got to be able to go to your mechanics and your management and say, look, this is my home. This is, where I do my job. If I don't do a good job, I'll move on and I'll understand, but I need the support.
Yeah.
I think every driver needs that.
Yeah, and everybody was saying after Baku, he was almost driving overly conservative so as to keep the car in one piece, and that is not a good place for any racing driver to be in.
I wonder if Gunther was, Gunther's had so much popularity because of his say what's on his mind. Maybe there's maybe he's getting caught up in that a little bit. I don't know. Talking about Schumacher. Hey, Les, you heard, you got the story on.
Said Schumacher's used up their entire crash budget.
Yeah. Les, you said you got a story from on the gearbox or the issue with. I just said the story.
That's it
with
you're
Sergio
right.
Perez.
There you go. You're right. You're right. Yeah. So they're saying Christian Horner was quoted as, "He lost drive, gearbox issue, but we need the car back." Horner told Sky Sports the exact reason they're yet to determine. Disappointing for Checo. He could have been out there today. So been quick out there today. Yeah, right. And I think we all saw that playing out.
Yeah.
Hard charging in, gearbox let go. And
okay, let's check on Chris. I hear he's either gone to a party or he's still in the paddock.
No, it's quite funny. Quite funny that you mentioned Christian Horner. I'm actually lingering for him to finish his print media session where I imagine he's explaining something similar to get that from the horse's mouth and get his views on today's race. So it's quite funny seeing there's a lot of team bosses running around in civvies already because they're ready to head out. So Zach Brown said he wasn't feeling great. He dropped me a message to say sorry for being rude, but I'm not feeling great. So I imagine we might have heard a croaky voice, or I mean, I think that's just convenient, isn't it, after a day like today? But
it's nice that he was polite enough to do that.
At least he got back to you.
Exactly. Yeah, so that allows me to fill the time that would have been the interview with him. So we'll saying what that was for. But I'm going to just scoot away from Christian Horner because he's still chatting away and see if Toto Wolff is around because he's been doing lots of media and is very much, he's all chilled out, ready in his jeans and his T-shirt, ready to hit the road, I think. So whether or not he will speak, I don't know. But
so Chris,
he's
do they actually
to some fans right now?
So where do they go tonight? I mean, these guys are already suited up, ready in civvies. Do you think they're flying back across the pond, or are they going to go to New York City, or what are they doing?
No, they're straight back across the pond. They'll be straight back to. They'll be in the factory tomorrow morning in the UK. It'll be a charter flight, I imagine, that they'll have sorted, and they'll be. It's one of my bugbears with F1 because a number of teams will do this, and then you get a red flag or something, and everything gets cancelled because they have a flight that they've scheduled. But it's to get back and get on with working. I mean, it's such a tense sort of full-on season with so many races crammed in. Every minute counts, so they try and get themselves back to the factory when they can, obviously back to their families when they can, and it's either get up as soon as you can tonight, or I mean, what time are we on now? 4:45 local time. If they don't get out in the next few hours, then they're waiting at least another day. But from my perspective, my first flight available was then tomorrow evening overnight, and you don't get home till Tuesday. So that's just not going to cut it if you're the CEO of a Formula One team. You've got to get back and do your job.
Yeah. I was hosting
and
somebody.
From what we've been hearing about travel in and out of Canada thus far this week, you need to get started as soon as you can because the delays are monstrous.
Yeah, there was a lot of issues. Maybe actually Toto's it's run out of clean clothes. Maybe that's why he's wearing civvies. A lot of people have had that. One of the guys I was sat next to in the media center had the same thing. He had to borrow a white T-shirt from someone to kind of be ready. But there's do I say be ready, be kind of clean for a day or two. But his bag hasn't shown up either. So he's hoping he picks it up on his way home. It was a big problem for a lot of people that showed up on Wednesday, really, with bad weather and some issues at the airport. But that's kind of the way of the world at the moment, which is, again, another reason why I think, as Bob says, people want to get moving as early as they can.
All right, gentlemen, let's take a pause here. And Chris, we'll come back to you in the paddock in Montreal after this. You're listening to Speed City. Back after these messages.
Hi, this is Gene Haas, and this is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM.
All right, straight out to you, Chris Medland.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've got Christian Horner, who was politely waiting, very kind of him. Christian, another win in the books. He's just celebrating a bit with the team, actually. They'll go and do, or they may have done, a team celebration photo. One good, one bad. Let's start with the good. How good was Max today under pressure?
He was supreme under pressure today. I think actually all weekend he's been absolutely on it every session, through qualifying, through the tricky conditions. And then that was a difficult race. Today the Ferrari was very quick. The VSCs didn't play out, ideally for us, but I think we adapted our strategy to suit. And, Max was under huge pressure, from the end of that last VSC. But, congrats to Carlos today. I mean, he put up a big fight, but Max had just enough to hold him off.
Now, you put me in my place on the grid and said, every race is hard. This won't be easy. We won't scamper off into the distance. Did you expect Ferrari to be as strong as they were in the race?
Yeah. I mean, you can see the way they're attacking the curbs. They're very strong on the curbs. And the problem was Max just couldn't break that DRS. It's so powerful that he could get up to half a second away in the first sector, but then sector 2, sector 3, it was just dragging Carlos with him. So that then put more pressure on him, like in Miami and in Jeddah and other races we've seen this year, to absolutely be pinpoint accurate with every braking point, every exit, and he nailed it today.
I was going to say, he never looked like he was going to put a wheel wrong either. I mean, how much faith do you have in Max in those positions as one of those drivers who just doesn't crack under pressure?
I think there's no better guy in the pit lane to deal with that kind of pressure. And I think, as his experience has grown, he's learned to, he just handles that pressure so well. All credit to him.
And then with Checo, is it a gearbox issue, it looks like?
It's a suspected gearbox. I mean, we need to get the car back first to understand, but let's see. We need to understand that, because obviously disappointing not to. I think he would have had a competitive race today, and frustrating not to have scored with him.
Did that play a part in the way you managed Max's race after that? Did you have to turn to be careful at all or anything?
Not really. It's always a concern when there's something that's happened that's unexplained. So because obviously the cars are identical, but we need to understand exactly what's happened there.
And just finally, I hear there was a very fun team principals meeting yesterday morning that included quite an irate Toto Wolff at times, talking about the FIA technical directive and the way the floors stays were introduced and not. I mean, where do you see this situation right now? Do you feel the FIA maybe leaning too much towards Mercedes and should leave it up to the teams?
I think he was maybe auditioning for Lewis's new movie, but look, let's see. It's an issue for the FIA, and it needs to be discussed in the right forum. Perhaps without television cameras
or radio microphones. But just finally, do you see that being resolved before Silverstone, or is there a date for a meeting to sort that?
It needs to be resolved, as soon as, really.
Yeah, because Mercedes looks fine today, competitive.
They were competitive, no bouncing. Drivers looked happy when they got out of the cars. But these two races were always going to be the worst on the calendar. So it needs, it needs to be discussed with the right experts in the right forum.
And home race next. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, look, I mean, great to be heading back to Silverstone. We went there last year, leading both championships and came away with nothing. So, we've put a great run together, heading to Silverstone in the lead of both championships. We'll be looking for redemption.
Well, good luck, Christian. Thank you very much for your time, and perfectly timed, because Max Verstappen has just walked in and got a big hug from his team boss. So there's Christian's thoughts on today's race.
Love it. Excellent.
Fantastic. So, Chris, do you have a part in Lewis's new movie?
I'm working on it. To be fair, actually, Lewis should be coming back soon, because Max coming in means they've just finished with the press conference for the whole of the top three. They go and do TV interviews, and they go and do a print press conference. So, how long are we after the race now? Nearly an hour, and they're still doing their planned duties. So that's the first time really Max has properly got back to his team to celebrate. And I imagine Lewis I think he's actually just gone into the Mercedes hospitality. So that movie's getting a few people excited, actually. I mean, why not? There's been there's some fun stuff out there, and I love the Top Gun link.
Tell us about it, because I'm sure a lot of the people aren't au fait on this.
So it's the director of Top Gun who has kind of come up with the idea to do almost a similar idea with a Formula One movie. Brad Pitt is going to star in it as the lead driver, who is basically an old boy coming out of retirement alongside a rookie to basically try and win another championship, I believe. And it's a little bit like, if anyone's seen Top Gun Maverick, the new Top Gun film, it sounds like a similar storyline to that. And if anyone who has seen that, I imagine would attest, it doesn't have to be always realistic. It can be cheesy, it can be corny, and still be highly entertaining and fun, but have some amazing kind of effects and graphics and reality sections. And I think that's what they want to do with a Formula One car, and kind of show people just how amazing F1 is as a sport, kind of how these guys are fighter pilots behind the wheel, but then adds that almost like cheesy aspect of it. So Lewis is an executive producer listed on it. He's going to be helping out in terms of the production side, which he has done before. He's listed on a couple. He's got credits on a couple of films, actually. Some are sports documentaries, but more than you'd have actually thought. And he's worked on the Cars movies and things like that. So not completely unknown territory for him. Whether he stars in it is TBC. So I think that's the next question that people want to know. But so far, all he's done is confirmed that he's involved and that they're excited about the project. But I believe it was Apple who have picked up the rights. So that should be coming in the next, I guess, couple of years?
Well, watching him get out that car at Baku, I mean, that was a great audition.
I bet he makes a cameo, and I hope the movie is more like Top Gun and less like Driven.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
absolutely. I think a lot of people hope that.
I just want to know who's going to play Ricky Bobby.
Wrong sport.
Hey, guys, I got to read this social media comment because it's fantastic. It says, wow, I just found you guys' coverage, your F1 coverage today on SiriusXM with you guys, Bob and Chris, at the race. This is top notch. Thank you.
Who's that?
Mom.
It's DZ27 or something. But yeah, I mean, it's like I agree with that. Thank you. Not us, but I mean, because we've not only got our pre and post, but we got the guys from 5 Live doing the race itself. So he obviously was listening to the race and everything. So thank you for everybody.
Christian Horner asked me a similar question. He said, how many people are listening to you nowadays? And I was like, me? Like 4. I was like, my mum, my dad. And he went, the cat. And I went, actually, I've got a dog. He said, I'm a dog person. So that's when you came to us.
That's funny. I did hear you. I did hear you say that, actually.
So, no, I believe it sounds like I'll have to tell him 5 now. So thank you very much for that comment on social media. Yeah. But no, it's great to have new listeners along all the time.
I love it that Christian gives you so much time. It sounds like you guys have a great relationship.
He's pretty good at talking to the press, to be fair to him. I mean, I know people that watch the Sky Sports coverage do say he's on it a lot, but he does give up a lot of time for the media, which is appreciated. There's some that I was lingering around with Mattia Bellotto while on a break, and he basically was unwilling to wait for a TV interview that had been lined up for him because Toto Wolff was finishing that slot. So he left. He just walked away, and the PR had to apologize. So again, like we said tonight, some people are trying to head out as quickly as they can to catch a flight. So they don't have time to wait around for us. We've got to be ready to go.
Exactly right.
Les, you had something?
Hey, absolutely. I know we're getting close to the dinner bell, but hey, just got to remind everybody, Circuit of the Americas, Cars and Coffee is back. So you know where I'm going to be next Sunday morning, 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Y'all come look for somebody wearing Speed City stuff. I might trade with you or something.
There you go. There you go. Any final thoughts, Mr. Varsha, after today's Canadian Grand Prix?
Well, the plot thickens, you know, as we said, good days for some, bad days for others, but we're not even close to halfway yet. And we've got great races coming up on consecutive weekends, beginning 2 weeks from now with Silverstone, and then Spielberg, Austria, and then the Paul Ricard circuit in France. So good days, busy days coming up.
Yep. Jonathan, Silverstone, your home race.
Yeah, very much so. And if you think about it, it's pretty much everybody's home race, given that all those teams are right there, including Aston Martin, right at the doorstep. Obviously, Christian Horner, Milton Keynes. I mean, you know, it really is a homecoming for all of Formula One, including Ferrari and Haas. To a certain extent, because Banbury's just down the road, all the rest of it. And always a great atmosphere. It's a real festival and well worth a tune in with the fast old airfield that it is. It could be another dominant display by Red Bull, but I think we've got some inklings here, and I'm interested to hear what Allison says in Wheel to Wheel.
That's right. Thank you, sir. Wheel to Wheel coming up Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on SiriusXM ESPN XTRA Channel 81. And, of course, next Sunday night, our Speed City show, local show in Austin. So you can always find that on the internet and on YouTube and all that. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. However you tuned in, thank you, Chris Medland. Fantastic job today, buddy. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Happy Father's Day to everybody. We'll
Happy
talk to you.
Father's Day, Dad.
See ya.